It's such a joy to meet Aaliyah's people. She and I have been in a small group together for, 15 or 16 years that's met monthly. And so I've gotten to hear all these beautiful stories about you. And it's just such a joy to see your faces peeking over the backs of these high pews. The Buddha once said, 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Some of you may have heard of the Reverend Rebecca Parker. She was the longtime president of Star King School for the Ministry, one of 2 Unitarian Universalist seminaries where ministers study. Harvard used to be, but it's not particularly affiliated that way anymore. So Meadville, Lombard, and Star King. And she is also a theologian and a UU and Methodist minister. And she's brilliant and kind. And I had the privilege of taking a course from her once. And she told our class that one day she had this moment that happened that really was a saving moment, a literal saving moment in her life. And so she told it to us, and we sort of sat on the edge of our seats while she unfurled it. So she was struggling in her life with depression, and she needed to find a greater truth than her own blanket of pain to reclaim her own story. This sermon explores that idea that there are timeless truths, that religion may name or uphold some of these truths, but religion doesn't create those truths. They are true in and of themselves. Of course, you may or may not agree with me by the end of the sermon, but that would just be a very Unitarian Universalist response. And of course, I welcome that. So here is Rebecca's story. One night in the depths of an endless winter, she became overwhelmed by despair and set out on a journey to the nearby lake with the intention to end her own suffering. As she tells it, she was numb to the core, walking as if dead already, one foot in front of the other, determined to do the only thing that might stop her pain. As she made her way toward the water, she crested a small hill and began to hear noises in the distance that she hadn't expected. It was close to midnight, but somehow she was hearing excited chattering. Such a stark contrast to her own desolation. She kept walking. She could see the lake shimmering, and slowly but surely she could make out little black shapes silhouetted and moving about at the water's edge. What were these fools doing up at midnight? All of a sudden, from out of the darkness, a young teen emerged. "Oh, you're here," he bubbled, though they had never met. "Quick, come see what the stars are doing." To her dismay, Rebecca had encountered the Young Astronomers Club. The teen caught her arm and brought Rebecca to a freestanding telescope, and suddenly she found herself peering into infinity. The vast cosmos danced before her eyes. Well, this dazzling constellation had been there for thousands of years, and yet this was the night with tons of comets streaking the sky. Rebecca huddled there amazed with all the rest of the amateur astronomers, enveloped by their awe and delight. Later, she walked herself home to Coco and her cat and a bed she could warm with her very own living body. What saved Rebecca's life that night was not just a starry sky. It was connection. Connection to wonder and to strangers and to something larger than herself. It was said of Rabbi Simha Bunim that he carried 2 slips of paper, one in each pocket, and on one it was written, "For my sake, the world was created. And on the other, I am but dust and ashes. He would take out each slip of paper as necessary, as a reminder to himself. To me, Rebecca's story holds both truths. In the midst of despair, she stumbled into wonder. She was offered hospitality. The tiniest connection to others linked her with all existence. And it was enough to ground her again to this earth and to her own place in the universe. She felt her small, sacredness and her infinite worth. The poet Denise Levertov writes in a poem, a long poem called Matins, Mornings. Marvelous truth confront us at every turn. In every guise, iron ball, egg, dark horse, shadow, cloud of breath on the air, dwell in our crowded hearts. Thrust close your smile that we know you. Terrible joy. And I love that poem. I titled this sermon after it. Let's see. I forget. Someone's going to tell me it's in your order of service. Confronting courageous truth or something. Was that it? Marvelous truth? Confronting marvelous truth. Thank you. That is from Denise Levertov's poem. Thank you. We're in it together. So Rebecca Parker wrote this book with John Burens, who was one of our UU presidents, and it's called A House for Hope. And this is a book that talks about how we are continually shaping our theological house. By theology, I don't mean what you or we believe about God, although it could be about that. I'm talking about what frameworks of meaning currently shape our community and culture. Theological frameworks respond to or are involved with a particular time and space. They are responsive and interactive. They change with the times, and they change as our need to understand our environment changes. For many of us, this journey isn't solely about seeking these truths. It is also about the art of articulating our beliefs, as we heard our beautiful reflection before the chalice lighting. Thank you so much for that, about how this tiny ability you have to create music, to give others, has created in you a chance to put love at the center. It must be that one of your beliefs is that it matters that we choose to put love at the center. I love your reflection. Thank you so much. We carry within us this tapestry of truths woven together by the influences of our families, inspirational teachers or mentors, tyrants or manipulators, the world's triumphs and tragedies, and of course, the still small voice within each of us. It's hard for me to reconcile my ideals as a Unitarian Universalist with all the destructive and hateful behavior that dominates the news and our nation and our world these days. Still, I remain committed to our liberal theology, which has always put forth that human love and goodness are stronger forces than human hate and destructiveness. Although terrible things do happen all around us every day, and it feels these days like it's just constant. I believe that our purpose over time as human beings is to move toward greater connection, greater unity, and a higher morality that includes all people and ultimately all living beings. Theodore Parker said it this way: Let us do our duty in our shop or kitchen, in the market, the street, the office, the school, the home, just as faithfully as if we stood in the front rank of some great battle and knew that victory for mankind depended on our bravery, strength, and skill. When we do that, the humblest of us will be serving in that great army which achieves the welfare of the world. I want to revisit the very basic underlying tenet of Theodore Parker's very famous 1841 sermon that's called The Transient and the Permanent in Christianity. And it could these days be said, the transient and the permanent in religion today. To this day, the most permanent message of our inherited religion is to follow the great commandment. Above all else almost all else is transient within our faith. And the great commandment being to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. Parker was born in Lexington, Mass. In 1810, and he died at age 50. What else could he have done, right? His progressive sociological views and provocative sermons on liberal religion in America caused him to be shunned by his fellow Unitarian colleagues for most of his working years. At the same time, the general public, most of whom were Unitarians or liberal thinkers themselves, admired his intelligence and emergent ideas on religion and politics and society. Parker preached in a time of great social and political upheaval in the United States, following the Second Great Awakening and leading up to the Civil War. He was ferociously active on behalf of women's rights, prison reform, and especially anti-slavery causes in the 1840s and 1850s, well before that was a cause most Unitarians would touch. In part, this was because wealthy Unitarians made a lot of money from the business of slavery, and partly because the subject of slavery was considered distasteful and not suited for high-class social gatherings. During his most influential years, Parker preached to around 3,000 people, then the largest audience in America, all without a microphone. As a liberal Christian, Parker was far more combative than either of his theological contemporaries, William Ellery Channing or Ralph Waldo Emerson. He relished a good argument. When Parker delivered a discourse on the transient and permanent in Christianity at an ordination in South Boston in 1841, he intended the main point of the sermon to be that Jesus preached the absolute religion. And then that became a point that he later himself refuted. Parker said, "Almost every sect that has ever been makes Christianity rest on the personal authority of Jesus, rather than the immutable truth of the doctrines themselves. It is hard to see why the great truths of Christianity should rest on the personal authority of Jesus, any more than the axioms of geometry rest on the personal authority of Euclid or Archimedes. The authority of Jesus, as of all teachers, must rest on the truth of his words." He also said, while true religion is always the same thing in each century, in every land, the Christianity of the people, which is the religion that is accepted and lived out, has never been the same thing in any 2 centuries or lands. So what he considered permanent in religion could be summed up in the Great Commandment, taken from the Torah and cited later by Jesus, an instruction to love your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and also to love your neighbor as yourself. Is an enemy a neighbor, we ask dubiously? In the case of Boston or the United States or the world, it's hard to sort that one out. Of course, Parker didn't say that loving your neighbor would be easy to do. The transient in religion was everything else. Doctrines, creeds, rituals, sacraments, justice issues that mattered immensely in their day, church debates over any number of seemingly important things. So that was Parker's message, that no matter what changes occur in our religion through time, the heart of what is essential is the fierce love that we can offer to others and to the world. And when sad and violent and terrible things happen, one human against another, neighbors just turning each other in to ice or other things like that, we must love not with compassion alone, but with forceful action. Stopping the violence is love in action. Stopping assumptions that are based on guilt by association or race, religion, or ethnicity, this is love in action. Keeping all people safe, this is love in action. Like Rebecca Parker, we may each have nights of despair. But if we keep walking, if we keep showing up for one another, we may stumble into starlight. We may remember the vast, shimmering web of life to which we belong. And we may help one another to find our place in it, held in truth and called by love. I will close now with a story about a teacher. It's a true story, and this is about a teacher who lives by the truth that love makes the real difference, day by day in her classroom. So every Friday afternoon, she asks her students to take out a piece of paper and write down the names of 4 children with whom they would like to sit the following week. The children know that these requests may or may not be honored. She also asks the students to nominate one student whom they believe has been an exceptional classroom citizen that week. All ballots are privately submitted to her. And every single Friday afternoon, after the students go home, she takes out those slips of paper and places them in front of her, and she studies them, and she looks for patterns. Who is not getting requested by anyone else? Who doesn't even know who to request? Who never gets noticed enough to be nominated? Who had 1 million friends last week and none this week? She's not looking for a new seating chart or exceptional citizens. She is looking for lonely children. She is looking for children who are struggling to connect with other children. She's identifying the little ones who are falling through the cracks of the class's social life. She is discovering whose gifts are going unnoticed by their peers. And she's pinning down right away who is being bullied and who is doing the bullying. What a brilliant force for good she has become. It's like taking an X-ray of the classroom to see beneath the surface of things and into the hearts of students. It's like mining for gold, the gold being those little ones who need help, who need adults to step in and teach them how to make friends and how to ask others to play and how to join a group and how to share their gifts with others. And it's a bully deterrent, because every teacher knows that bullying usually happens outside of eyeshot, and that often kids are being bullied. Often the kids who are being bullied are too intimidated to share. But as she said, the truth comes out on those safe, private little pieces of paper. And when someone asked this teacher, "How long have you been using this system?" she said, "Ever since Columbine." every single Friday since Columbine. Good Lord. This brilliant woman watched Columbine knowing that all violence begins with disconnection. All outward violence begins as inner loneliness. She watched that tragedy knowing that children who aren't being noticed will eventually resort to being noticed by any means necessary. And so she decided to start fighting violence early and often, and with the world within her reach. What this teacher is doing when she sits at her empty desk, in her empty classroom, studying those lists is confronting marvelous truth. She is saving lives. This wonderful teacher retires this year after decades of saving lives. What a way to spend a life, looking for patterns of love and loneliness, deciding to make her life work about putting love at the center, stepping in every single day and altering the trajectory of our world. Dear ones, you are our first responders, the front line, the ones who see what looks like truth. It looks like truth, that some are worthy and some are not. But we know that's not right. You are the best hope we have got for a better world. What do you do with your personal set of truths? How you live the permanent religious truths at the core of our faith is in your hands. And now these three things remain: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. May it be so, and amen.